First, let's look at manuscripts. So, all of us know that we don't have the original document of the Bible, right? We don't have original John's Gospel. When John wrote it, that original document is gone. So, what they did was, because these documents were written on papyrus, as soon as a document was written, it was copied, and the copy was called a manuscript. The original document was called an autograph, the copy was called a manuscript. So what they did was, as soon as the original document, the autograph was written, well-trained scribes would painstakingly make a copy of the autograph and make one copy of it. Then they make another copy of it. So generation after generation, there will be copies after copies after copies after copies of the original manuscript. And the original manuscript, the autograph, is long gone because it's written in papyrus. And then over time, even the copies kind of disappear, and the copy of the copy of the copy survives over time. Two things about the manuscript is that the time between the original copy and the earliest found manuscript is important. Right? After many copies, the earliest found manuscript. So when we dig back to in archaeology and find manuscripts of the old documents, we date those manuscripts and we find how early, what is the time difference between the original document and the earliest found manuscript. And the closer that time is, the better and more accurate the original document is. So, well, what is the time difference between the original document and the copy? For most ancient documents, it is 1,000 years. 1,000 years after the original was written, we have found the earliest document. For Roman historian Tacitus's Annals, the earliest copy is 700 years after the original. In Homer's Odyssey, it is 500 years after the original. How about the New Testament? The New Testament is 50 years. The New Testament is 50 years after the original. That is one generation away. In one generation, we have the closest of all the ancient documents, we have a copy. And the earliest known manuscript is a little papyrus called P52, which are 5 verses from the Gospel of John, chapter 18. And that is in the John Rylands Library in Manchester, England. And it's dated 117 to 138 AD. One generation after Jesus. One generation after it was written. Next, we look at the number of manuscripts. Because we don't have the original, the more number of copies there are, the better. If you have less copies, then you have less to compare with. And if it's 1,000 years from the original and you have only one copy, you're like, well, how accurate is that compared to the original? So the number of manuscripts are important. The more number of copies that are available of the original document, the better the validity, the accuracy of the original document that we can find out. Well, let's see how ancient documents compare. The number of manuscripts. In Tacitus's Annals, there are 2 documents. 2 manuscripts. That's it. And that's 700 years after the original that we have found. Thucydides' history has 8 documents. Julius Caesar's Gallic War has 10 manuscripts. Livy's Roman history has 20 manuscripts, and by far the most is Homer's Iliad, which has 643 manuscripts. And we think, wow, that's amazing. There are 643 manuscripts of Homer's Iliad, and that's amazing. We have no doubt about Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars. We have no doubt about it, even though we have only 10 copies of it. How about the New Testament? How many copies do we have of the New Testament? We have 26,000 copies. 26,000 manuscripts of the New Testament. You see, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of ancient documents, there is no comparison with the Bible. If we use the standards that we use to evaluate any other ancient document, the Bible, the Gospels, the New Testament, by far and away is superior in its accuracy to the original.